And I call the member for Hughes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm pleased this morning to rise to speak on the Treasury Laws Amendment Junior Minerals Exploration Incentive Bill of 2017. And you are correct, Mr Speaker, it is very difficult to see how the member for Fenner during this debate could bring in anything about the GST. Yet from his speech, Deputy Speaker, it is very clear yet again that Labor believe in magic pudding economics, a magic pudding redistribution of the GST where they give more to one state without taking away expenditure from other states. But back to the specifics of the bill, Deputy Speaker. This bill simply has one purpose. It is to continue the jobs growth that our Australian economy, the wealth creation that we have seen over the past few years and especially over the last 12 months under this coalition government. Last year, Mr Speaker, over 400,000 new jobs created in this economy. We can fill the MCG 4 times over with the number of new jobs in our economy in just 12 months. And 300,000 of them, 300,000 of those 400,000 new jobs were full-time jobs. 70% of them, more than 70%, created in the private sector. And in the coming months, or perhaps even the coming weeks, we are going to pass the 1 million new jobs mark. That will be since the coalition government was elected back in 2013. This economy would have grown by close to 1 million new jobs. That number will be surpassed, as I said, most likely in weeks rather than in months. And Mr Speaker, it gives opportunity when we talk about this particular bill, on the Junior Minerals Exploration Incentive, to reflect how important the mineral sector is to our economy. We know the numbers for 2015-16 alone, that our mining sector contributed $12 billion. $12 billion directly to Commonwealth and state government treasury coffers. That's what pays for our schools. It pays for our hospitals. It pays for our aged care, our disability services, our pensions. And yet, we see, Deputy Speaker, the curious inconsistency of those that are most vocal about demanding on more government expenditure happen to be the same people that are most vocal about closing down and preventing and putting delays in place from our minerals sector from creating wealth in this country. For those, Deputy Speaker, that stand and protest about mining in this nation, they must understand that it is the wealth from those mines that pays for everything that this government needs to finance. Now, Deputy Speaker, when it comes to our mining sector, this is important to encourage our junior miners, because in this parliament, unfortunately, we have many members that sit on the other side of the House that actually like to go out and discourage our mining sector. And I give the example of none other than the member for Port Adelaide and the Shadow Minister for Energy. Someone you would think, Mr Speaker, that would be at every opportunity trying to talk up our mining sector and encourage investment in the mining sector. But no, the Shadow Minister for Energy said last year, he said, and I quote directly, he said, "We need to be honest. There is no demand for additional thermal coal." He went on, "Demand for thermal coal exports around the world are in rapid decline." That's the encouragement that members of the Labor Party give to our mining sector. And let's just see how that prediction actually went, Deputy Speaker. Remember, this is the Labor Shadow Minister for Energy predicting demand for thermal coal exports around the world is in rapid decline. He said that in the middle of last year. Well, let's just have a look what actually happened last year, Deputy Speaker. Let's firstly start with Australia. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Last year, although Labor believed that coal was in rapid decline, last year Australia's exports for coal hit an all-time record, $56.5 billion, actually up over 30% on 2016. And 2017 actually broke or smashed our all-time record set back in 2011 of $46.7 billion. Of those exports, 20 million tonne was thermal coal and 172 million tonne was coking coal. Deputy Speaker, but it's not only just Australia that had their coal exports increase against the predictions of the best minds of the Labor Party. Well, from what happened in the USA last year, Deputy Speaker. Well, according to the US Census data released only last week, US coal exports increased 60.9%. A 60.9% increase in US coal exports, and yet the best brains of the Labor Party were telling us that coal exports around the world are in rapid decline. Or Japan. What happened in Japan last year? To look at the great predictions of the Labor Party. Well, here we are, January 24, a report from Reuters. Quote, Japan's thermal coal imports rose to a record level last year. Thermal coal imports in Japan rose 4.3% from the year earlier to 114.5 million tonnes in 2017, surpassing the 113.8 million tonnes in 2005. Record coal imports in Japan, Deputy Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, how about China? What happened in China last year as comparison to the Labor's prediction of rapid decline in thermal coal exports? February 8, Deputy Speaker, Beijing, Reuters. China's coal imports hit their highest level in 4 years, customs data show. Thermal coal prices on the Zhengzhou Commodity Exchange touched a record high of 679 yuan, or $107 Australian. And they note, seaborne coal shipments from Indonesia rose 11.6 million tonnes last month, their highest since November 2006, while coal arrivals from Australia climbed to their highest in month, according to data compiled by Thomson Reuters Supply Chain. And yet, the experts of the Labor Party tell us that coal exports are in rapid decline. But it doesn't stop there. South Africa last year also recorded record thermal coal exports. The same in Indonesia. Indonesia's this year forecast that their coal exports will be up 7%. And Indonesia expects their domestic demand for thermal coal to increase 17.5% this year. And it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. Even the International Energy Agency has forecast that world demand for coal would hit a record 5.5 billion tonnes in 2020, up 300 million tonnes from the current levels of 5.2 billion. So that is 300 million more tonnes of coal is forecast to be consumed in 4 years' time than it is today. And yet we have Labor members of Parliament, none other than their shadow Minister for Energy, trying to talk down Australia's coal sector. And what do some of the experts in the industry say? Well, let's have a look here. A report from the Sydney Morning Herald in January this year, quoting New Hope Chief Executive Sean Stevens, who told Fairfax Media, and I quote, "We're seeing strong demand for higher quality Australian thermal coal in Asia. That's what's driving the price." They report that Rio, had production of coal up 8% for the quarter and up 4% in December 2007. Whitehaven's Chief Executive, Paul Flynn, has quoted, "What we've observed is very strong demand out of Asia, fuelled by their demand for high-quality coal for their supercritical power stations." Very strong demand out of Asia, and yet we have the Labor Minister for Energy telling us demand is full. We've even got, Deputy Speaker, Mine Life's Gavin Wealth saying there is a very healthy price outlook for thermal coal. Speaker, our encouragement of our mining sector is so important to the economic prosperity and the job creation of our nation. To have Labor members continually running an anti-coal rhetoric damages our economy, and it damages job creation, it damages wealth creation, and it undermines our nation's ability to finance the very important things that we continually hear whinged about in this place, from schools to hospitals to aged care that we are not spending enough on. The only way that we can increase sustainably spending in those areas is to encourage those wealth creation industries, and yet those that want the greatest government expenditure do everything they can to talk it down. And I'm sad to say, Deputy Speaker, that this anti-mining, anti-coal rhetoric is not refined to the Labor Party and the Greens. Unfortunately, it has affected some of our major banks. And I'm talking here about the National Australia Bank, who put out a press release just before Christmas saying that they will no longer finance new thermal coal mining projects. We have record thermal coal exports around the world. We have the International Energy Agency predicting that the world will need 300 million tonnes extra of coal than what was consumed last year. And yet here we have one of our major banks actually going out and issuing a statement that they will no longer finance new thermal coal mining projects. This is extremely disappointing. This is the greatest indication that our banks have far too much market power. To have such politically correct nonsense being put out in a press release by one of our major four big banks, talking down one of our nation's important exports and our most important industries, is extremely disappointing in the least, Speaker. But Speaker, that's why this coalition, we understand what creates wealth in this nation. We understand what creates jobs. We've got the runs on the board over the last 12 months. We're going to continue that this year because we understand that the best way to create jobs, Speaker, is not through big government, not through more regulation, but giving the entrepreneurs of this nation, taking the handcuffs off them, getting rid of the red and green tape, that they can go out there, that they can invest with confidence, that they as a government that will support them, that they can go out and create jobs, Deputy Speaker. That is what has worked in the past. That is what worked last year. That is what created those 400,000 new jobs. That is what will see this economy surpass 1 million new jobs under the coalition in the coming weeks. Deputy Speaker, with that, I commend this bill to the House, and I would ask members of the Labor Party to consider what is best for the nation, to put aside your anti-coal rhetoric and to get behind the mining sector and the wealth creation sectors of this nation.